Good morning, and thank you for joining us for these 10 minutes to discuss how you can support well-being in your team. This morning, we return to the leadership support building block of well-being and our exploration of how leaders can build morale within their teams. Last week, Dr. Sophia wrapped up his series on creating well-being norms with ideas about how we can plan to implement these commitments at work. The challenge some of us shared during the discussion time was imagining how we find the time, energy, and support to change team beliefs and behaviors that are not serving us well. How do we make the norm of taking breaks a reality? How do we reimagine our meetings? Trying something new can feel pretty overwhelming when it's added to everything else that you have to be doing as a leader right now. So let's start with take-home message number one. You do not have to design or implement your team's well-being plan alone. The power of creating a common vision is something we know so well in theory, but at times it can be challenging to really act on it. When we're busy, it may just feel easier or more efficient to do something ourselves. I remember I had a favorite relative who was famous for saying, "Thank you for offering, dear, but I don't have time to be helped." Engaging our team members in working towards a common vision of how we will live into our well-being norms will take time. There will be days where it doesn't feel efficient, but it is the only way to succeed. And that brings us to autonomy. Autonomy, simply put, is about our ability to make choices and feel we have some control over our lives. Deci and Ryan, who are best known for self-determination theory, and we'll get to that in the next slide, called autonomy the basis for true self-esteem. Employees' sense of autonomy is central not only to self-esteem, but to increased engagement, motivation, productivity, performance, satisfaction, and innovation. It is also strongly connected to well-being. Self-determination theory helps us understand how people grow and change. Now, according to Ryan and Deci, we are more likely to be motivated to change our beliefs and our behaviors when three basic needs are met. The first need is autonomy, or the need to control or self-determine the course of our lives, our behaviors, and our work. When we feel we have little choice, we may feel vulnerable. And many of us experienced this during the COVID restrictions when we didn't have choices about what we did with some of our free time. The second area is competence, or our ability to be effective in what we choose to do. And that's a related need. If I don't believe I have the skills to do something different, such as influencing well-being norms in my team, I may be less likely to be motivated to step up. And finally, relatedness. As we've discussed several times in this series, we all have a human need to connect and to have close, respectful, and personal relationships with others. So then how can we sort of weave together these three needs in order to support our team's adoption of well-being norms and practices? Here's a take-home message number two. Harness the power of peers in your planning and implementation. This builds motivation for change by addressing our need for autonomy or choice, meaningful connection, a shared purpose, and that feeling that we have the ability to influence our work environment. And now we get to empowerment. Empowerment and the need to feel competent are closely related. And I like this definition from the World Bank. Empowerment is increasing the capacity or competence of individuals and groups to make choices about what they want and to transform those choices into desired actions and outcomes. But here, friends, is take home number three. I cannot empower any person without their consent. Empowerment is a collaborative process. Of course, we as leaders can create structures, policies, norms, practices, or processes that support empowerment, but ultimately empowerment is relational. It's something we build together. Now, some of you may remember the crisis leadership training we offered last year. And one of the key principles is that empowerment is the antidote for feeling powerless and out of control. Most people do not want to be taken care of. They want to be empowered to take care of themselves. Similarly, and I admit this may not be what we think we hear, most people really do not want us to solve their problems for them. They want to feel that they have the choices and the competence, the resources, and the personal support needed to solve their own problems. Now, a major challenge to empowerment or autonomy is over-helping. As leaders, how do we find that Goldilocks place, right? That sweet balance between under-helping and under-supporting our teams and over-helping them. So let's have a look at some practical strategies. The first is to invite your team to create a shared well-being why. Why is this important? Why do they believe they deserve it? And why are they going to work on it together? Starting with why is very motivating. Start by focusing on existing strengths and well-being activities. So instead of assuming that we don't have what we need, have a look at what's already in place that is supporting team engagement and morale, a culture that's healthy and well-being. Because when we're able to start looking at something that's already there, it shrinks the size of the perceived change. And that's motivating. Give people space and time to explore what might be possible for you as a team in terms of well-being. Let's not rush through it. The idea of creating this shared vision and understanding how to realize it is not going to happen at one meeting. And just giving people the space to understand that is a gift to them. And then, of course, as we've said many times, listen to the ideas and opinions that people offer, even if they differ. You'll find that a lot of people want to offer advice and suggestions, but encourage questions, because when we encourage questions, we encourage more people to participate in the process and more people to begin to sort of feel that they have an influential voice. Co-create your goals and the plan. So once you have your vision, as you think about, well, then how are we going to go about it and what specifically are we going to do when, co-create that with your people. So that, because if I'm offered a plan that you developed for me, the best I'll do is comply with it. I don't care for or commit to something that I don't have a voice in. So the co-creation of a plan is a super important step here. Start small, because early wins are going to build motivation and that belief in success. Support and recognize your team's successes every chance you get, and also support them if they're struggling to overcome obstacles. This doesn't mean rushing in and fixing things or taking over from them, but it's really just inviting them to think about, well, what are we doing well, and how can we put some support in place to overcome some of these obstacles to our plans. And finally, express your appreciation often and look for every opportunity to celebrate the wins that you're having as a team. So here then are today's tips. Manager tip number 27. Invite your team members to participate in creating a shared why statement for your well-being work together. That's the first step to begin to engage them in this journey towards new and supportive well-being norms. And agenda tip number 29. Add some updates about the ongoing development, rollout, and success of your well-being plan as a standing agenda item. So before we end today's session, please take a moment to give us some feedback and answer the 2 questions Tara's going to put in the chat. And next week, I'll be back with you and we're going to talk about how do we learn from and let go of the past. And sometimes that's important. When we're hanging on to old beliefs and practices, sometimes we need to learn to let go of them so that we can move into our new desired future. As always, we encourage you to use and share the resources of Healthy at Hopkins in the Office of Wellbeing. If this is something you would like to see that's not there, let us know. And talking about Healthy at Hopkins and Office of Wellbeing, I'm going to encourage you to join us today at noon for a virtual walk to kick off our Race the Globe challenge. And that's it for me.